Hello everyone and welcome to another video on Python programming. In this video we will learn about conditional statements and we will learn about how do we create these control structures where we have these conditional statements. We will learn about the keywords that we use in Python to create a conditional statement block, the if keyword, the elif keyword and the else keyword. We will also learn about indentation and its importance in Python. So let's get started. So the basic syntax, if you will, for a if statement in Python consists of the keyword if followed by an expression. As you can see from this pictorial, there's an if statement, there is a expression, there is this block of code which, if you can actually see, is slightly indented to the rest of the code, and then we have the rest of our code after that. So what we're looking at is this. So this is our if statement block. Now let's break this down. So what is this expression that we're speaking of? An expression in this context is a Boolean expression which evaluates to a true or false statement. So when we are speaking about the if statement, we have an expression, and if this expression evaluates to true, then we execute everything below the if statement. Otherwise, we skip that portion. As you can see, if this statement is true, we execute this statement or these statement blocks. Otherwise, if it's false, we move on to the next statement block or the beginning of a new statement. So let's look at an example to further understand this. Let's take this if statement over here. As you can see, in this if statement, I have this expression 50 greater than 30. So what Python is going to do now is it's going to check whether 50 is greater than 30, and it's going to check it in a Boolean context. If this is true, then we can move on to the next portion, which is this. But if it is false, then we will skip this. So let's see what happens over here. So since we know that 50 is indeed greater than 30, this is a true expression, we move on to this block of code, which is saying that print 50 is indeed a larger number than 30. So let's see if this actually gets printed. So as you can see, we get this the result, which is this is a true statement, and we get our print statement getting executed. What if we gave a false expression over here? So let's look at what happens if I gave a false expression. Now I'm checking if 50 is lesser than 30, which is a false statement. So if it's a false statement, we do not move on to this portion of our if statement block, and we directly skip. So if I have to execute this, you will see nothing gets executed. And in fact, my print statement is just not executed because we never entered this, because our expression over here was indeed false. So yeah, this is how a basic if statement block looks like in Python, and this is how how we move on to how we check for the truthfulness or the falseness of a particular expression in the if statement. So moving on, let's move on to the topic of indentation in Python. So as you can see, this if statement is an example of a control structure. So without defining what a control structure is in detail, control structures consist of these conditionals or loops or iterations, if you will. So all of these control structures involve heavy indentation. So what does an indentation mean? Well, what if I gave you an example? Say I gave you some variable called age, and I wrote 20 over here. Now if I gave you an if statement saying if age is greater than 10, now it's very important to note that when I'm defining an if statement, I need this colon, otherwise this if statement is not defined. So this colon is important anyways. So now I'm checking this expression if age is greater than 10. Now what happens if age is greater than 10? Now, what if I want Python to do something only if age is greater than 10? Well, how do I tell Python that there is a piece of code or a section of code that I want executed only if this condition is met? Well, this is where indentation comes into play. So if I want this line, this person is an adult. Again, this is some random line where I'm assuming age is pertaining to this adult, alright, or this person. So if I have this variable age where I write this number 20, which denotes the age of some person, and I'm doing a check if age is greater than 10. Actually, let's be specific here. Well, the adult age for most people is 18 in most countries. So let's see if age is greater than 18. Now, if I'm doing this check, I want to print this statement only if this person's age is above 18. So how do I tell Python that I only want this statement to be executed only during this if this condition is met. Well, this is where indentation comes into play, and as you can see, exactly as you can see, this portion of the code is slightly indented compared to the if statement. So when this condition is met, then only do we move on to this. If this condition is not met, we move on to whatever the next section of code will be, like whatever code that we have after this if statement. So let's see. So since this condition is actually met, as you can see, this print statement is actually executed. So this is the importance of indentation. Now we will see as we learn more about if statements and else statements and elif statements, how indentation plays a key role in defining what we want as an output when a certain condition is met. Alright, so for now it's very important to understand that this is how indentation is used in Python. In other languages we might use, we probably don't use indentation. In fact, popular language, the C language, does not use indentation at all. But some languages, and Python is probably the trademark language for indentation in programming. So you might say that, so different people have different opinions on indentation. The general consensus is that indentation helps make the code look very presentable and very readable, and this actually is one of the facets of Python programming, is the indentation and the easy readability of it. Anyways, moving on. So what if we have multiple conditions in our code, or in our if statement block that we want to see? So let's create this list, or let's actually just copy this example that I have written over here. As you can see, what I am doing in this piece of code is I have a list X where I have this integer 50, I have two strings, cat and apple. Now I want to check a bunch of things. So I want to check if 60 is an X, and I also want to check if the string cat is an X, and I want a final sort of, like, if none of these conditions are met, I want something to happen. So how do we do that? Well, we start off our if statement block with the standard if keyword. Alright. Now if we have one more condition that we want met, then we can use the elif, which is kind of a short form for else if. So we use the elif keyword. So what Python reads is it checks this condition, then it will check this condition, and then finally we have this else keyword. And else is a keyword used in our block to tell Python that if none of our earlier expressions have been true, then do what is in the that is within the else keyword, that is indented within the else keyword. So again, we don't pass an expression for else, because else is we only reach this else statement in case all of the earlier conditions have not been met or have come to be false and not true. So let's look at this particular code example. So we have a list of 50, cat and apple, and my first expression that I'm checking is 60 in X. So this is how we check actually. So if 60 and X should be read as is 60 in the list X. So is this 60 in the list X? Well, actually no, we don't have the object 60. So this part is not executed. We move on to the next condition. Is the string cat in X? Well, actually it is. The string cat is indeed in X. So we move on to this statement block, which is within the condition that is met, which is print cat is in list X. And you will see that none of the other statement blocks will be executed because we have met our condition over here. So if I execute this, as you can see that the print statement cat is in list X is what is actually executed. And we do not execute this obviously because it is false, and we do not even check, or we do not even move on to this statement because, well, we have a condition met over here. So it's one thing that is important to note is that we can use as many elif statements to check for as many conditions that we want to check for, but it's very important that we only use, and if we are using, that we only use one else statement and only at the end of our block. Okay, so moving on. Now I'm going to show you a very neat example about how Python actually does its these condition checkings. So it's very important to note that once a condition is met, none of the other conditions are even checked for. So we do not even consider the next statements, and we directly leave this if statement block. So let's look at this example over here. Now in this example that I have over here is where I've stored the string cat in X. Now I have three conditions that I'm checking. I'm checking is 50 greater than 60, I am checking if the value of x is indeed cat, and I'm checking some random expression 1 divided by 0. This is not even a check. This is literally just checking if 1 divided by 0 is true or false. And as we know, we cannot divide anything by 0. So let's see what happens when I execute this statement. Now, typically, if I wrote 1 divided by 0, Python will throw me an error because 1 cannot be divided by 0. That is an erroneous statement. So let's see what happens when I do this actually. As you can see, I have a statement being printed, but I have no error, even though I gave an erroneous statement in 1 divided by 0. Well, now you might ask, why is that so? Well, it's simply because I have actually never reached this condition. I have not even, Python has not bothered looking at this, because if you actually see, there is a condition previous to this over here, which is met and which is true. So we move on to this block, we execute this block, and we forget about the rest of the code. So we don't actually get to this erroneous statement, which is an interesting thing, and which is an example that I have shown to show you that once a condition is met in an if statement block, we do not look at any of the further conditions that are being checked. Okay, so finally, I have one small topic that I would like to share with you is the conditional expressions, or the Python's ternary operator. Now, this is slightly different to the if statement that we have talked about up until now, in the sense that it is not a control structure. So what this actually is more of an operator that defines some expression. So let's see what I am trying to say over here. So as you can see over here, highlighted is the syntax for what I'm trying to talk about, this ternary operator. So let's look at this example and let's see what I'm trying to do over here. So I have this variable age, alright, and this age is 26. Now just read this statement. X is equal to adult if age is greater than 18, else child. Now I could have done an elaborate control structure with an if statement, then an indentation within that if statement, and then I could have written else and then another indentation, and I would have written another statement over there. But instead of that, I have used this operator to assign a particular value to the variable x, and this what value I'm assigning to x depends on if this condition is true or false. So as you can see, the condition says is age 18, greater than 18. So if this is true, then I assign this particular string. If it is false, then I go on to the else statement and I assign this. So since age 26 is greater than 18, I should assign the string adult to x. And as you can see, if I execute this and check what is an x, you can see adult is indeed an x. So this is a very neat, a very readable, and a very it's a better looking way to perform simple else, simple if and else statements, where you don't want to create a whole if else statement control structure block. So yeah, this was the ternary operator. Finally, we make a short note on the pass statement in Python. So the pass statement, or the pass keyword, is a place where is a placeholder of sorts. So what if I had an if statement and I'm writing a piece of code, but I don't know what to do with this if statement. So if a statement is correct, if a statement is true, but I don't know what to do if this statement was true, how do I tell Python, well, let's just keep it a hold for now, and I might put something into this block later in the future? Well, I would use the pass statement. So if I had this, say this some condition again, if I'm checking age is greater than 18, but I don't know what to do with this, I would just simply use this pass statement. And this basically does nothing. It's like a way to create a placeholder where maybe in the future I might write some sort of say a print statement or some sort of a different function or something else within this indentation. So, but in the meantime, like currently I don't have anything to place over here, so I just leave it with a pass statement. So this is a way where you can use a pass statement in if and else statements or if and else control structures. So yeah, this was a basic an introduction into conditional statements and the control structure of if and else statements in Python. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned something from this video. And as always, please drop us a like, subscribe to our channel. This helps us reach new learners such as yourself. And once again, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.